Evan had always lived in the city. He knew the sound of traffic better than the sound of birds, and the smell of gasoline better than the smell of fresh grass. Tall buildings, noisy streets, crowded buses, those were the things he grew up with. So when he signed up for a weekend ranch program, everyone in his family asked the same question. "Are you sure you can handle it?" He wasn't sure, but that was exactly why he wanted to go. Evan wanted to experience something different, something real. He wanted to touch the kind of life he had only seen in movies: wide open fields, animals running freely, long sunsets, and starry nights without streetlights blocking the sky. He wanted to try things outside his comfort zone. Still, even with all that excitement, he felt a nervous flutter in his chest as the bus drove deeper into the countryside. The city faded behind him, replaced by rolling hills, wooden fences, and long stretches of land that seemed endless. Cows grazed lazily in the distance. Horses lifted their heads to watch the bus pass by. Everything felt open and alive. And Evan pressed his face against the window like a curious child. When the bus finally stopped near the ranch entrance, Evan stepped out and breathed in the clean air. It felt different, cooler, lighter, almost refreshing. He looked around at the large wooden sign that read, "Turner Ranch," the name written in bold letters with a horse carved underneath it. A gravel road stretched ahead, leading to a cluster of barns, sheds, and a farmhouse with a wide porch. Everything looked peaceful, but also intimidating in its own way. Evan picked up his duffel bag and walked down the gravel road. His shoes sank slightly into the dirt. He heard birds calling, wind brushing through the tall grass, and somewhere in the distance, a cow letting out a long, low sound. It was nothing like the sounds of the city. For a moment, he wondered if he had made a mistake. Then he saw a man walking toward him from the main barn. The man looked like the kind of person you'd expect to see in a ranch commercial: tall, strong shoulders, sun-tanned skin, and a calm face. He wore a wide hat, dusty boots, and a denim jacket with sleeves rolled up. He walked with slow, steady steps, as if he had all the time in the world. When he reached Evan, he stopped, studied him for a moment, and then gave a small nod. "You must be Evan," the man said. "Yes," Evan replied, trying not to sound nervous. "I'm Cal Turner," the man said. "This is my ranch. Welcome." His voice was deep and steady, but not unfriendly. Evan relaxed a little. "Thank you," he said. "It's really beautiful here." Cal gave a slight smile, the kind that showed he appreciated the words even if he didn't say it out loud. "Glad you think so. We start early around here. You ready for that?" Evan nodded quickly, even though he wasn't sure he actually was ready. "Good," Cal said. "Come on, I'll show you around." They walked together toward the barn. Evan's eyes moved everywhere at the wooden fences, the old tractor parked near a shed, the chickens wandering freely, and the horses grazing behind a gate. Everything felt alive and different from anything he had known. Cal explained things as they walked, pointing to buildings and tools, naming them one by one. Evan listened carefully. Even though half of the tool names were new to him, "This here's the main barn," Cal said as they stepped inside. The smell of hay and animals filled the space immediately. Rays of sunlight streamed through wooden slats, catching dust in the air. "We keep most of the cattle supplies here. Calves stay in that pen when they need medical checks." Evan nodded, pretending to understand. He wasn't used to the smell or the sounds, the soft shuffling of animals, the quiet clinks of tools, the rustling hay. But something about it felt honest and simple. Cal turned to him. "You nervous?" Evan hesitated, then gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "Maybe a little." Cal's expression softened. "Good. Nervous means you'll be careful. That's better than being careless." That made Evan feel slightly better. Cal continued the tour, showing him the feeding station and the water troughs. The rancher spoke in a calm, steady voice, explaining the animals' daily routine when they ate, how they were checked, how the younger animals were taken care of. Evan listened, nodding, trying to keep everything in his head. Ranch life was a lot more organized than he expected. It wasn't just feeding animals and walking around. It required attention, timing, and understanding. As they walked, Evan noticed a young calf on the other side of the barn, lying quietly in a pen. Its big eyes blinked slowly. Cal saw where Evan was looking. "That little one's only a few weeks old," Cal said. "We check its temperature every morning to make sure it's healthy." Evan nodded without thinking, not fully realizing what that meant. He had seen thermometers before, of course. He just assumed it was the same kind used for people. Cal continued walking but then stopped near a tool table. He picked up something long and thin, something that did not look like the small thermometers Evan was used to. It was longer, sturdier, and definitely meant for animals. "Today," Cal said, holding the object casually, "you're going to help me with the calf's morning check." Evan froze. He looked at the tool, then at the calf, then at Cal. His brain tried to connect the pieces, and a loud alarm rang in his mind. I'm helping with that?" he asked, his voice a pitch higher than usual. "Sure are," Cal said, not noticing Evan's panic. "It's quick." "You'll be fine." Evan stared at him. The words hit him like a shock. "You're putting that inside me?" he blurted without thinking. Cal stopped. The barn went quiet. Even the animals seemed to pause. Cal blinked slowly, his face stuck between confusion and disbelief. Evan felt heat rush to his cheeks. He wanted the ground to open up and swallow him whole. This was not how he wanted his ranch experience to begin. Cal finally spoke, each word slow and puzzled. "Inside? You?" Evan swallowed, suddenly wishing he could disappear. "I mean, I just thought, since I'm helping, I wasn't sure." Cal stared another second, then let out a breath and shook his head. "Son," he said, voice flat. "This thermometer is for the calf." Evan's face turned bright red. He felt like his ears were glowing. In the far corner of the barn, one of the ranch hands had paused mid-step, clearly trying not to laugh. "Oh," Evan whispered. "Right, of course, I knew that." "Obviously." Cal raised one eyebrow. "Did you?" Evan wished very deeply that he could go back in time 5 minutes and stay quiet. Cal didn't laugh, though. He gave a small sigh, like a teacher dealing with a very confused student. "Don't worry," he said finally. "You're new here. You'll get used to things." Evan nodded quickly, grateful that Cal wasn't teasing him. Cal walked ahead, gesturing for Evan to follow. Evan dragged his feet slightly, still feeling embarrassed, but also strangely determined. He wanted to learn. He wanted to understand this world. He wanted to leave the ranch with stories he was proud of, not stories about accidental misunderstandings. As he followed Cal toward the calf pen, Evan took a deep breath. The ranch was big. The work was unfamiliar. And he had already embarrassed himself. But he wasn't giving up. He came for a new experience, and this was definitely turning into one. The ranch day was just beginning, and Evan had no idea how many more surprises were waiting for him. Evan followed Cal through the barn, still feeling embarrassed about the misunderstanding he had created moments earlier. Every time he replayed the scene in his mind, he felt his face warm up again. He couldn't believe he had said something so silly out loud. But the ranch was quiet, and Cal walked calmly ahead. So Evan tried to pretend nothing had happened. The barn smelled of hay and warm animals. Sunlight came through the open door, making soft golden patches on the floor. Dust floated lazily in the air, and everything felt peaceful, even though Evan's heart still beat faster than normal. He tried to match his steps with Cal's steady pace, but his mind wouldn't stop thinking, "How could I say that? Why didn't I think before speaking? Did everyone hear me? What if they all laugh later?" Evan shook the thoughts away and took a deep breath. He reminded himself that he came here to learn. Mistakes were part of learning. And Cal didn't seem angry, confused. Yes, but not angry. That gave Evan some comfort. When they reached the calf pen, the young calf lifted its head to look at them. It had soft brown fur and large round eyes that blinked slowly as if everything in the world moved at half speed. It made a small sound, almost like a gentle complaint, and shifted its weight in the hay. "There she is," Cal said. "Little Maple." Evan smiled at the name. Maple? That's cute. Cal nodded. When she was born, she had a small mark on her forehead shaped like a leaf. So, we named her after it. She's gentle, but she gets nervous with new people. Evan stepped a little closer, careful not to move too fast. The calf sniffed the air and then looked at him with a curious expression, as if trying to decide whether he was safe. Cal set down the thermometer on a small wooden shelf beside the pen. Evan tried not to look at it too closely this time. He already had enough embarrassment for one morning. Before we start, Cal said, we need her to stay calm. Animals can sense when someone's nervous, so you want to use slow movements and a soft voice. You can talk to her too. They may not understand the words, but they understand the tone. Evan nodded and slowly reached out his hand. Hi, Maple, he said quietly. I'm not here to bother you. The calf blinked, then stepped forward to sniff his hand. Her breath was warm and soft. When she touched his fingers with her damp nose, Evan felt a small moment of excitement. He was really doing ranch work. Cal watched him with a small, approving nod. Good. Just keep your hands steady. Evan gently stroked the calf's head. The fur felt surprisingly smooth, and Maple seemed to enjoy the attention. She leaned slightly into his hand. Evan felt a spark of confidence. Maybe he wasn't completely hopeless at this. Cal picked up the thermometer again. Evan tensed for a moment, but this time he understood what it was for, and tried not to react. Cal noticed his stiff shoulders and gave him a tiny smirk. Relax, son. It's just a standard check. Takes only a few seconds. Evan nodded quickly. Right. I'm ready. Cal stepped into the pen and gently touched Maple's side. Evan, stand on her left. Put one hand on her neck so she knows you're there. Evan stepped inside and positioned himself as instructed. Maple shifted slightly, but didn't pull away. She seemed to accept their presence. You're doing fine, Cal said. Animals can get jumpy sometimes, but Maple's one of the calmer ones. Evan felt proud of that compliment. Even a small positive remark meant a lot, especially after the awkward moment earlier. Cal prepared the thermometer, then paused. Before I do this, make sure you talk to her. Keep her attention on you. Evan took a slow breath and began speaking softly. Hey, Maple. You're okay. We're just making sure you're healthy. You're doing great. Maple looked at him with trusting eyes, as if she understood the kindness in his tone. Cal worked quickly and gently, and Maple only shifted her weight a little. Evan kept his hand on her neck, speaking in a calm, steady voice the whole time. After a short moment, Cal nodded. All done. See? Told you it'd be quick. Evan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Wow. She really didn't mind that. Animals don't mind much as long as you treat them right, Cal said, stepping out of the pen. Good job. Evan beamed. It felt good to hear praise from someone who clearly knew what he was doing. He had come here feeling like everything would be too hard. But now, with the calf quietly sitting beside him, he felt a sense of accomplishment. Cal wrote something in a small notebook. Temperature's normal. That's a good sign. Maple's growing well. That's great, Evan said, giving the calf one last gentle stroke. She's sweet. Cal closed the notebook and tucked it into his jacket. She is. Most animals are, if you show them patience. Evan stepped out of the pen, brushing hay off his shoes. Cal motioned for him to follow again. That was the easy part. The day's just getting started. We've got feeding rounds, grooming, and checking on the other animals. You'll learn plenty. Evan felt both nervous and excited. The ranch was busier than he expected. He heard distant animal sounds from the open field and voices of ranch hands finishing their early morning tasks. They walked toward the feed storage area. Cal grabbed 2 buckets and handed one to Evan. Evan held it with both hands, surprised by the weight. This is heavier than I thought, Evan said with a small laugh. Cal smirked. You'll get used to it. Ranch work builds muscles you didn't know you had. Evan followed Cal outside toward a fenced pasture. The sun had risen higher now, casting warm light across the land. The fields looked golden, stretching far into the distance. Evan took in the scenery, amazed by how open everything felt. It was the complete opposite of the city's tight, crowded spaces. A group of cows gathered near the fence, noticing the buckets in their hands. Some mooed softly, eager for breakfast. Cal climbed through the fence and motioned for Evan to follow. "They're friendly," Cal said. "Just stay calm and slow." Evan stepped inside the fenced area, keeping a respectful distance from the larger cows. He could feel the ground vibrate slightly as they moved. One cow approached him, sniffing the bucket in his hand. "Hey there," Evan said, smiling nervously. "Breakfast is coming." Cal laughed lightly. "Go on. Pour the feed in the trough." "Tell me." Evan walked toward the long metal trough, careful not to spill. The cows followed him closely, causing him to laugh in surprise. Once he poured the feed in, the cows immediately surrounded the trough, munching happily. Evan watched them, fascinated. "They really like this." "Of course," Cal said. "They've been waiting since sunrise." They continued feeding the rest of the animals. Evan learned how much each animal needed and how to mix the feed properly. His arms grew tired, but it felt like good work, honest work. He didn't feel bored once. Everything was new, different, and full of small lessons. At one point, a chicken wandered too close to Evan's feet, and he jumped a little. Cal laughed openly this time. "You'll get used to the chickens," Cal said. "They're harmless, just curious." Evan shook his head, amused. "Everything here is curious about me." "That's because you're new," Cal replied. "Animals notice everything." As the morning went on, Evan's clothes got dusty, his hands sore, and sweat formed on his forehead. Yet he didn't mind. There was something grounding about working outdoors. After they finished feeding, they returned to the barn to put away the buckets. Cal looked at him and said, "You handled everything well today." Evan felt a rush of pride. "Thanks. I'm really enjoying this." Cal gave a small smile. "Good. Tomorrow will be even busier." Evan's excitement rose again. There was so much to learn, and each moment felt like a new adventure. Even the mistakes were teaching him something. As they walked back toward the main barn entrance, Evan felt a sense of belonging growing in him. This world was unfamiliar. Yes, but it was also warm, open, and full of life, and he was slowly becoming part of it. He had come here unsure of himself, but now, after just one morning, he felt braver than before. Little did he know, the next part of the day would bring even more unexpected moments. Evan and Cal walked back toward the barn after finishing the morning feeding. The sun was now shining brightly over the fields, and everything seemed more alive. The cows were louder, the chickens more active, and the breeze carried the warm smell of hay across the ranch. Evan wiped sweat from his forehead with the back of his hand, surprised at how much he had already done in just a few hours. Cal walked with the same steady calmness he always had, his boots crunching softly over the gravel. Evan tried to copy that relaxed walk, but every step reminded him how new he was to all this. His muscles were starting to feel the morning's work, but he didn't mind. He liked the feeling of effort. When they reached the barn entrance, Cal stopped and leaned against the doorframe for a moment. Evan stood beside him, waiting for the next instruction. He could see Cal's eyes scanning the barn carefully, checking everything like someone who knew every corner and sound of the place. "You're doing fine so far," Cal finally said without looking at him. Evan felt a rush of pride. "Thank you. I'm trying my best." Cal nodded slowly. "That's all anyone can ask. Hard work and honesty go a long way here." They walked inside, and Evan noticed a couple of ranch hands standing near a table, sorting ropes and tools. One of them, a young man with messy hair and a friendly grin, waved at Evan. "Morning, city boy," he called playfully. Evan smiled awkwardly. "Morning." Cal gave the ranch hand a look, not angry, but sharp enough that the young man quickly went back to his work. Evan appreciated that. He was already trying to overcome his earlier embarrassing comment, and he didn't want it brought up again. Cal walked toward a small shelf where a clipboard hung. He flipped through several pages, checking notes, animal names, and times. "Next on the list is grooming," Cal said, "specifically, brushing some of the horses." "You ever brushed a horse before?" Evan blinked. "A horse?" Uh, no. I've only seen horses in movies and maybe once at a fair. Cal chuckled softly. Well, today's your chance. Evan felt excitement rise again. Horses always seemed majestic and powerful to him. The idea of standing next to one, let alone touching one, felt both thrilling and intimidating. They walked toward the stable attached to the barn. The area was quieter, shaded, and smelled strongly of straw and clean wood. Sunlight peeked in through the open windows, lighting the space with a gentle glow. Several horses stood in their stalls, heads poking out, ears flicking at the sound of footsteps. One horse in particular, a tall, brown one with a black mane, immediately caught Evan's attention. It lifted its head and stared at him with large, calm eyes. This here is Rusty, Cal said, stopping in front of the horse. He's gentle, but likes new people to approach slowly. Evan stepped forward carefully, reminding himself of how he had approached Maple earlier. Rusty sniffed the air and let out a soft snort. Go ahead, Cal encouraged. Offer your hand so he can smell you. Animals do that to understand who you are. Evan lifted his hand nervously. Rusty leaned forward and sniffed his palm. Evan held his breath, amazed at how big the horse's head was up close. After a moment, Rusty nudged his hand lightly, as if greeting him. Evan laughed softly. He's friendly. Cal nodded. Told you. Rusty's one of our calmest horses. Good for beginners. Cal opened a drawer near the stable wall and handed Evan a wide brush. Hold this. I'll show you the right motion. Cal demonstrated with his own brush, moving gently along Rusty's side in long, smooth strokes. Rusty lowered his head slightly, enjoying the brushing. Now you try, Cal said, stepping aside. Evan raised the brush and started copying the motion. At first, his strokes were a little uneven, but Rusty didn't seem to mind. Soon Evan found a rhythm, stroke down, stroke up, smooth and steady. Rusty's coat shined more with each pass. This is actually relaxing, Evan said. Cal smiled slightly. Animals can have that effect. Evan continued brushing, feeling more comfortable with each stroke. His earlier anxiety faded. He liked the quiet moments, just him, the horse, and the sound of the brush gliding over Rusty's coat. As he worked, Cal leaned back against the stable door, crossing his arms. So, Cal said casually. About earlier. Evan froze mid-brush. His heart skipped. Cal raised a hand lightly. Don't worry. I'm not judging. Just want to clear it up. Evan's face turned warm again. I'm really sorry about that. I don't know what I was thinking. Cal laughed a calm, deep chuckle. You were nervous. Happens. Ranch tools look strange when you've never seen them before. Evan sighed in relief. I thought you'd be annoyed. If I got annoyed every time someone new misunderstood something, I'd be annoyed my whole life. Cal said with a shrug. That made Evan relax. Rusty turned his head as if agreeing, which made Evan laugh. But Cal continued with amusement in his eyes. For future reference, son. Everything I ever do here is for the animals. Not for you. Evan groaned dramatically and covered his face with one hand. I know. I swear I won't make that mistake again. I won't, Cal laughed again. I'm sure you won't. Evan appreciated the humor in Cal's voice. The misunderstanding was embarrassing, but the way Cal handled it made Evan feel safe and accepted. It felt like the kind of mistake that people laugh about later, not something to be ashamed of forever. After several minutes of brushing, Cal said, All right, switch sides. Horses need even grooming. Evan moved slowly to the other side, keeping a hand on Rusty's shoulder so the horse knew where he was. He brushed in the same smooth motion, watching loose dust fall away and reveal a clean, shiny coat beneath. Looks good, Cal said. You're learning fast. Thanks. I like this part, Evan admitted. It feels peaceful. Cal nodded. Animals have a way of teaching us patience. When they finished, Rusty shook his mane proudly and gave a soft neigh, as if thanking them. Evan laughed and patted his neck. I never thought I'd be brushing a horse today, he said. Well, There's a first time for everything on a ranch, Cal replied. They walked out of the stable and back into the main barn hallway. Evan felt lighter, more confident. It was amazing how a single morning at the ranch could change how he saw himself. Next, Cal said, glancing at his clipboard again, we need to check on the chickens. Something simple before lunch. They walked across the yard to the chicken coop. Inside, the chickens clucked and hopped around, pecking at grains and exploring small corners. One chicken looked up at Evan with bright curiosity, and before he could react, it walked straight toward him and pecked lightly at his shoelace. Evan jumped. Cal laughed. They like anything shiny. Shoelaces, buttons, your phone. If you drop it, Evan shook his head. Even the chickens are bold here. As they checked the coop, collected eggs, and made sure everything was clean, Evan found himself smiling the whole time. Nothing felt boring. Every small task revealed something new, an animal's personality, a skill he didn't know he could learn, or a simple moment that felt meaningful. After they finished, Cal closed the coop gate and wiped his hands on his jeans. Good work. Evan stretched his arms, feeling the satisfying ache of effort. Thanks. I didn't know ranch work could be this interesting. Cal gave a thoughtful nod. Most people don't. It's simple work, but it's honest. That's what makes it worthwhile. Evan looked around the wide field, the animals grazing peacefully, the warm sun overhead, and understood what Cal meant. The ranch wasn't just a place to work. It was a place to grow. As they walked back toward the barn, Cal said, "You handled yourself well today. Mistakes included." Evan laughed. "I'm glad the mistakes didn't ruin everything." "Nothing's ruined," Cal said kindly. "It's only the beginning for you." Evan felt a spark of excitement in his chest. He was finally starting to feel like he belonged. But he had no idea that the day still had one more unforgettable moment waiting for him, one that would test his courage in a whole new way. After checking on the chickens, Evan and Cal made their way back toward the main barn. The sun was higher now, casting brighter light across the open fields. The sky was a deep, clear blue, and the breeze carried the soft scent of grass and earth. Evan felt tired but happy, and every part of him buzzed with the sense of doing something real, something meaningful. Cal checked his watch. "We've got a little time before lunch," he said. "So we'll use it wisely." Evan nodded, ready for whatever was next. "What's the plan?" "Grooming the cattle," Cal replied. "Especially the younger ones. Helps keep them healthy, removes dirt, and helps them get comfortable around people." Evan smiled. "I'm starting to like working with animals." Cal gave him an approving look. "They can tell when someone means well. And you do." Those words encouraged Evan more than he expected. He followed Cal to the grooming shed. A simple wooden structure with brushes, soft cloths, small buckets of warm water, and clean towels stacked neatly on shelves. Cal handed him a soft, bristled brush. "These are gentle enough for young calves. You'll see." Evan grabbed the brush with excitement. He felt like each hour on the ranch brought a new experience he had never imagined himself doing. They walked toward the small pasture where some of the younger cattle were resting under the shade of a large tree. Maple, the same calf from earlier, was there too, calmly chewing on grass. When she saw Evan approaching, she lifted her head and made a soft noise, as if recognizing her morning helper. "Looks like she remembers you," Cal said with a half smile. Evan's face brightened. "Really? Animals remember kindness," Cal replied simply. Evan approached Maple slowly. She didn't step away. Instead, she sniffed the brush in his hand, and then nudged his arm gently, as though approving of the idea. Evan laughed. "She's so sweet." Cal positioned himself nearby with another calf, demonstrating how to groom them. "Start with the back. Use steady strokes. Not too hard, not too soft." Evan copied the motion. Maple stood still, only occasionally shifting her weight, and looked completely relaxed. As he brushed her, loose dust and bits of dry grass fell away, leaving her coat smoother and cleaner. "This is almost like brushing a big warm cat," Evan joked. Cal chuckled. Animals are animals. But if that helps you understand the motion, then so be it. Evan continued brushing, more confidently this time. Maple leaned slightly into the brush, enjoying the attention. The calmness of the moment wrapped around Evan like a warm blanket. The world felt slower, gentler, and full of simple joy. After a few minutes, Cal said, "All right, time to rinse her a little." He handed Evan a small bucket of warm water and a soft cloth. Evan dipped the cloth into the bucket and gently wiped Maple's side. She shifted at first, surprised by the sensation, but soon settled again. "You're doing great," Cal said. Evan felt proud. "I never thought I'd be this close to farm animals. It feels natural." "Ranch life does that," Cal said. "Makes you realize how connected everything is." They finished grooming Maple and moved on to a few more calves. Each one had a different personality. One was shy and kept hiding behind the others. One was curious and kept nudging Evan's pockets as if expecting treats. And one kept turning its head to watch Evan with bright, observant eyes. Evan laughed more during that hour than he had all week. Cal watched him with a soft expression. "You've got a good touch with animals. Gentle, patient. That matters." "Really?" Evan asked, genuinely surprised. "Really," Cal said. "Some folks rush the animals or handle them too roughly. But you're calm. That's what they need." Evan felt a warm glow of pride in his chest. When they finished grooming, Cal led him to another part of the ranch, the storage shed, where they kept supplies, tools, and equipment for emergencies. "We won't do anything difficult," Cal said as they reached the shed. "But I want you to learn what these tools are for." Evan braced himself. He remembered the earlier misunderstanding and prayed he wouldn't embarrass himself again. Cal opened the shed door. Inside were shelves lined with bottles, ropes, blankets, medical kits, and different-sized tools. Everything was organized neatly, labeled clearly. Cal pointed at a row of gentle, harmless tools. "These are for hoof cleaning. You won't use them today, but it's good to know them." Evan nodded, examining each tool carefully so he wouldn't mix anything up again. Next, Cal pointed toward some soft wraps. "These are for mild injuries, sprains, small cuts. Animals get into trouble sometimes." Evan ran his fingers over the soft material. "Feels like a big first aid kit," he said. "That's exactly what it is," Cal replied. As they sorted through supplies, Cal explained different tools and their uses, some for cleaning hooves, some for grooming, some for feeding, and some for medical checks. He avoided showing anything complicated or intimidating. Evan appreciated that. Everything was explained clearly, calmly. At one point, Cal picked up a small bottle of antiseptic spray. "If an animal gets a scratch, this is what we use." "8," Evan nodded. "Makes sense." He was determined not to misunderstand anything this time. Cal seemed to sense that and gave him a reassuring smile. "Relax, son," Cal said gently. "You're learning. Mistakes happen. You're doing well." Evan took a slow breath and felt the tension leave his shoulders. "Thanks. I just don't want to mess anything up." "You won't," Cal replied confidently. "Not as long as you ask when you're unsure." They spent almost half an hour organizing and learning about different items. Evan found himself enjoying it. The shed felt like a tiny classroom, and Cal, surprisingly, made a very patient teacher. After they finished, Cal shut the shed door and said, "All right. One more thing before lunch." Evan perked up. "What is it?" Cal grinned. "You're going to help move some hay bales." Evan's eyes widened. "Those big ones?" Cal laughed. "Not the giant round ones. Just the small ones. They're light enough." They walked toward the hay storage area. Stacks of rectangular hay bales were arranged neatly. Cal grabbed one easily and handed it to Evan. Evan lifted it and almost stumbled. "It's heavier than it looks." Cal raised an eyebrow with a playful smile. "City folks usually say that." Evan laughed breathlessly. "I'm trying, okay?" "I can see that," Cal said. They carried several bales from one side of the barn to the other, creating a more organized stack for later use. By the time they finished, Evan's arms ached, and his shirt clung to his back, but it felt like the kind of tiredness that made him feel strong inside. When they finally set down the last bale, Cal clapped Evan lightly on the shoulder. "Good job. You worked hard." Evan took a deep breath, catching his wind. "This is definitely not what I'm used to. But I like it." "Good," Cal said. "Hard work teaches you about yourself." They walked back toward the farmhouse, where the smell of lunch drifted in the air: warm bread, cooked vegetables, and fresh soup. Evan's stomach growled loudly, and Cal laughed. "Sounds like someone's ready to eat," he said. "I think I burned more energy today than I have in months," Evan replied. As they reached the porch, Cal said, "Rest a bit after lunch. Afternoon has more work waiting for us." Evan nodded, excited and tired all at once. The ranch had already taught him so much patience, gentleness, and the surprising ease that came with caring for animals. He felt more connected to this place with every passing hour. And although he didn't know it yet, the afternoon would bring a challenge that would test everything he had learned so far. After lunch, Evan stepped out onto the porch feeling refreshed. The warm food and short break had given him new energy. The sky was still bright, and a gentle wind blew across the ranch, carrying the scents of grass, hay, and sun-warmed earth. He stretched his arms and looked around, feeling a sense of calm that he had never experienced in the city. Cal walked out behind him, wiping his hands on a towel. "Ready for the afternoon?" "Absolutely," Evan said with a smile. "What's next?" Cal stepped off the porch and pointed toward the far side of the ranch. "We need to check the west pasture." One of the ranch hands said the gate might be loose. If the gate isn't secure, animals can wander where they shouldn't. Evan nodded. "I can help with that." "Good," Cal replied. "It's a bit of a walk, but the view out there is worth it." They started walking through the open field, passing the cows, relaxing under the shade of scattered trees. Birds flew overhead, and the sound of their wings made the moment feel peaceful. Evan noticed how the sunlight painted everything in warm colors. He felt grateful for being there, learning things he had never known, and experiencing a world so different from his own. As they walked, Cal spoke in his usual calm, thoughtful way. "You did good this morning. Most newcomers get tired halfway through the day, but you kept up." Evan laughed lightly. "My legs are tired, but I'm not giving up." "I can see that," Cal said. "You've got determination. That's rare sometimes." Evan felt a warm glow inside. Praise from Cal always felt meaningful because it was never forced or exaggerated. It was honest. They reached the west pasture after several minutes. The area was quiet, with tall grass swaying gently in the wind. A few cows grazed nearby, lifting their heads curiously as Evan and Cal approached. The gate in question stood at the far end, slightly tilted. "Ah," Cal said with a sigh. "I knew it." "What happened to it?" Evan asked. "Wind probably loosened the latch," Cal replied. "Sometimes the animals nudge it too." Cal knelt down and examined the latch. Evan stood beside him, handing him tools when needed. The work wasn't hard, but it required patience. Cal showed Evan how the latch connected to the post, how to tighten the screws, and how to check the wood for cracks. "You always want a gate to be secure," Cal said. "Not too tight, not too loose." Evan nodded as he learned, focusing carefully. He didn't want to repeat any early-day misunderstandings, and Cal's steady explanations helped him feel confident. "There," Cal said after a few minutes. "Give it a try." Evan grabbed the gate and shook it gently. It didn't move. It stood firm, solid, and secure. "It's perfect," he said proudly. "Good work," Cal said, rising to his feet. Most people don't realize how important something as simple as a gate can be. Evan smiled. "I think I'm starting to understand how everything connects here." Cal looked at him thoughtfully. "You are." They began walking back toward the main area of the ranch. But halfway through the field, Evan noticed something small beside the fence. A little calf much younger than Maple stood alone, softly bleating as it searched the ground. Cal immediately slowed his steps. "That's Buttercup," he said. "She must have wandered from her group." Evan approached gently. The calf looked frightened, ears twitching, legs slightly shaky. Is she hurt? Evan asked softly. Cal shook his head. Looks more like she's scared. She's new to the pasture. Probably got separated from her mother. Evan crouched slowly, keeping his movements soft. Hey there, little one. You're okay. The calf stopped and stared at him, unsure. Cal spoke quietly behind him. Animals trust calm energy. Don't rush her. Evan took a slow breath. His heart beat steadily. He lifted his hand, just like he had done with Maple earlier. The young calf sniffed the air, hesitated, and then took a small step forward. That's it, Evan whispered. You're safe. Finally, she touched her nose to his hand. Evan smiled, relieved. Good, Cal said. Now guide her back gently. Talk to her while you walk. Evan rose slowly, keeping a hand lightly near the calf's neck so she didn't feel alone. He walked with her, matching her slow steps. The calf followed him willingly, feeling protected by the calm presence beside her. Cal watched with approval. You're a natural, he said. Evan glanced back, a little surprised. I just did what you taught me. Cal nodded. And you did it right. They brought Buttercup back to the main pasture, where her mother was grazing under a tree. As soon as the calf saw her, she hurried forward. Her mother nudged her gently, making a soft sound of reassurance. Evan felt a flood of warmth in his chest. He had helped reunite them. He had actually made a difference. Cal stepped beside him. Feels good, doesn't it? Evan nodded. Yeah, it really does. They began walking back to the ranch again, and Evan realized just how much he had grown in one day. He had arrived nervous, inexperienced, and unsure, but now he felt stronger, more confident, and connected to the land and animals around him. Cal glanced over with a small smile. You know, he said, you handled today better than some people who've lived here their whole lives. Evan blinked. Really? Really, Cal said. I wasn't sure at first, especially after your little misunderstanding this morning. Evan groaned softly, covering his face. Please don't remind me. Cal laughed gently. No harm done. Sometimes, the funniest mistakes make the best memories. Evan lowered his hand and laughed too. I'm never living that down, am I? Nope, Cal said with a grin. But you'll laugh about it someday. As they reached the barn, some of the ranch hands waved at them. One of them joked. City boy survived the day. Evan waved back, smiling confidently. More than survived, he said. I actually enjoyed it. The ranch hands laughed approvingly. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky with soft orange and gold colors. The animals settled into their evening routines. Horses stood quietly in the stable. Cows grazed in the fading light, and chickens moved closer to their coop. Evan stood beside Cal, watching the peaceful scene. This place is beautiful, Evan said softly. Cal nodded. It is. And you did good here today. Evan looked at him with genuine gratitude. Thank you for teaching me. Cal gave a small nod. If you ever want to come back, the ranch will be here. Animals remember kindness, and so do people. Evan felt his chest tighten with emotion. He hadn't expected one day on a ranch to affect him so deeply, but it had. It changed the way he saw life, work, and even himself. As the sky grew darker, Evan took one last slow look around the fields. The quiet animals, the old wooden barns glowing softly in the sunset. He knew this place would stay with him forever. And when he finally left the ranch later that evening, he carried with him more than just memories. He carried the confidence he had gained, the lessons he had learned, and a story he would tell for years about the time he came to a ranch as a nervous city boy and left feeling like he truly belonged.